The first three X-Men movies are perfect, and yes, I mean perfect. The first three X-Men movies basically encompass everything that I liked about superhero movies, down to the casting, down to the fight scenes, even down to it being cheesy as fuck sometimes, which I also like. And I think that it was good for the X-Men movies. Now, I didn't really watch any other X-Men movies after this, as it kind of just didn't really hit with me if I did watch them, and to be honest, I don't really remember watching the other X-Men movies. But these first three X-Men movies were perfect. Now, around the time that I was watching these were some of the first superhero movies that I had watched. And I didn't know anything about X-Men because, like I said in my other superhero video, I never watched any superhero movies before this besides like Spider-Man. And I didn't read comic books. So I didn't know who the fuck Wolverine, Storm, and Magneto was. I didn't know who any of these people were. So I had no idea of what the X-Men storyline really was. And also, I didn't really watch superhero cartoons back in the day either. So it wasn't necessarily like, I had an idea of what these heroes even did. I just knew that these heroes looked cool and that they kind of appealed to me more than the Avengers did at the time. These heroes were more simple and more like easier to grasp them because like their powers were simple, and like the storyline of X-Men, at least in the first three movies, you didn't really need to like know things ahead of time to kind of like get where the story was going and understand anything. Because if I could compare the first three X-Men movies to anything else that I had watched when I was around this time, it would be Power Rangers. X-Men, especially the first three movies, are like the Power Rangers of superhero movies. And I think that's kind of why I like it, because I love Power Rangers. I love Power Rangers up until like Jungle Fury. But I think that I liked X-Men more than I liked the other Marvel superheroes is because they kind of added, that Power Rangers level of cheesiness. But it's not too much to where like, the movies are like unwatchable. But it makes it so that, it doesn't take itself so serious that it becomes, not entertaining to watch, like how some movies do from time to time. But it also isn't as cheesy as to where they only, rely on jokes and that's all they do for like, multiple segments of the movie. It's enough seriousness and enough cheesiness to where that I can enjoy the movie. But as I've gotten older and I've learned more about these heroes, these were some of my favorite portrayals of the X-Men that has ever been done in any type of movie. And outside of Wolverine, because I think his best movie was Logan, people like Cyclops, Beast, Mystique, and Storm, these were some of their best representations that I've seen of any, X-Men adaptation. I haven't really been up to date with any like, cartoon movies that have been released. So these were some of the best and the ones that I liked the most, because it felt like it was true enough to the character to where they didn't need to change a lot about that backstory or how the character acts in the movie. Like my favorite portrayal of any hero in these movies was Cyclops. I love the way that they portray Cyclops in these movies, and I love how his character is, I love his character arc. Even though I feel like Cyclops got done dirty in these movies by his out of place death, which was bullshit to me, but even though he died prematurely and didn't really get to fully flesh out his character, I really do like how they portray Cyclops in this movie. But I also love that they didn't make, Cyclops dumb. Like they made him smart, and like, they didn't make it seem like, he can't control his powers. They made it seem like, he can control his powers, but he's conflicted on, how he feels about Jean, how he feels about the Phoenix. And I really liked how his character was portrayed in these movies. And Storm is kind of a iffy thing. Like we haven't really had that many live action Storm portrayals to begin with, so this is kind of like the ones that I can only really go on. So I can't really compare Storm to any other movie or TV show, because I have a bad memory and I can't really remember how she was portrayed in those. So it's kind of iffy with Storm. But for these first three X-Men movies, I did like how she was portrayed, and I like how they did with her, and I like everything that they did with her character. But this kind of leads me to like the thing that I mainly wanted to talk about with the X-Men movies. Now I know that everything is kind of in like reboot phase. It's like everything is getting a reboot, and everything is kind of being redone and rehashed. I feel like it's kind of time for X-Men reboot. I'm not really sure, because like I don't really feel like X-Men really got a fair shake like how the Avengers did. Like, I feel like if the X-Men were given as much time as attention, as much time and attention as the Avengers were, then I really do feel like it would be a way better franchise. Now, I'm not completely asking for a reboot, but it would be nice to see X-Men really get that, attention to detail that Marvel did with the Avengers. And even if you don't give X-Men a reboot, I really would feel like it would be great to, see an expansion on X-Men, because I feel like if the Avengers can get their multiverse shit going, then I feel like you could give X-Men a multiverse. I just feel like it's right. Because I feel like if you can make all this money off the Avengers and keep continuing with their story and their timeline, then why don't you do the same with X-Men? I really feel like that X-Men has been left out of, sort of the superhero craze that's been going on over like the past decade. Because I really feel like, if X-Men came out with their first 3 movies around the time that Marvel, rebooted their heroes, with Iron Man and Thor and all that, I really feel like X-Men will be in a way better spot than it is now. But I say that I'm not calling for a complete reboot because the X-Men franchise kind of did, end with the Logan movie and, Wolverine dying. So I don't really know how they would, come back from that if it isn't just like a hard reboot on everything. But if they did, I wouldn't necessarily be mad at it because I would love, more attention to detail and, even just like a updated version of X-Men just so that we can, see the story of X-Men be portrayed in a much better way than what it was, in the early 2000s. And while I'm still on the topics of, reboots for the X-Men series, I would love that, if the characters actually got, their own origin story movies, kind of like how, every Avenger has their own origin story movie, even like fucking Black Widow has her own origin story movie. I think that like that's the level of like detail and attention that I kind of would hope that, the X-Men series would get. Because I didn't really like how they just kind of like glossed over like everybody's origin story except for Wolverine. Like Wolverine basically got his whole story told over all the X-Men movies, but like people like Storm, Magneto, Professor X, like all their origin stories kind of just got jumbled up into the movies about X-Men as a whole, and not necessarily expanding on the heroes individually and not giving them the attention that they kind of needed to flesh out their characters more. I feel like if they got that, then the characters would be way better than they were in the original movies, instead of just kind of, being one-dimensional, if you kind of get what I'm saying. I feel like this could easily be done if there really is like a big interest for X-Men. I heard that there's gonna be another Wolverine movie soon anyways. So I feel like this is like the perfect time to reboot the X-Men series and give it, new life. Instead of just, it kind of, ending on a good note, obviously with Logan, but obviously, giving it more attention that it deserves and, really fleshing out the story of the characters.